This is a quick video to show you how to export your BIM model so that you'll be able to use it in another software that's not even an Autodesk product downstream. So from a quantity surveyor's point of view, you want to export it in a file format that you can import into your software. What you can't do is import in a Revit file, so you have to export it in what's called an interoperable file first. There's a couple of different file formats in Revit that you can export in. This would be the equivalent of exporting or saving your Word doc in a PDF or your Excel doc in a PDF or a text file. It gives the ability to the user downstream to open that no matter what software they have. Even if they don't have Microsoft Office, they can open it and view that file. Same goes for building information modeling. In fact, it's really important in BIM that there is a good interoperable file format. Autodesk have their own. It's the DWF or DWFx file format, and it's designed so that I can export from Revit and import in Navisworks, or export in Revit architecture and import into Revit structural. There is the open BIM file format, and that's IFC, and that is, I suppose, pure interoperability, where it doesn't matter what software or what manufacturer has manufactured the software, I'll be able to export it and import it into my software to utilize again downstream. So I'll show you the DWFx file format first. It's a fairly simple process. Click File, click Export, DWFx. More than likely you will just see the view that you have open at that time. You also want to select DWF properties and make sure that the room spaces and areas in a separate boundary layer are selected. That's very important from a quantity surveying point of view, because you want those attributes to be available in your software, in your QS software, for calculation of, let's say, room areas. So back to View Sheets, drop down to In Session View Set and drop down to all the views in the model. Now what I'm going to do, I have available to me all the views that are in my project browser, and I can just click one or I can click a number. So let's say 3D without sight, maybe the elevation, a number of different elevations, all the plans selected here. I don't necessarily need a legend, but I could select it, the reflected ceiling plans and some of the sections. So once I select the different views of the model, I can select Next, call it, let's say, .export .date 17.04. So it'll save as a DWFx file, and it'll save, well, wherever I want it to save. Let's save it to my desktop. So that just takes a few seconds to download. It's going through the downloading or going through the exporting process. And if I want to see it, let's see if it's here, and I believe that's it up there. Okay, so click back to Revit. That's exporting in DWFx. I'm going to click File, Export. Now let's export an IFC, Industry Foundation Classes, which is a file format produced by, or I suppose set up by Building Smart, which are a non-profit organization promoting interoperability, whereby you can export from one software, no matter what the manufacturer is, and import it into another software. The issue with this one is you might get some slight data loss going from the mapping situation from one software to another, because it's got to map to a common schema first, and then that common schema is then imported into the software. So in that process there can be some data loss, whereas in the DWFx process, because it's an interoperable file from Autodesk going to another, predominantly another Autodesk product, it tends to not lose any information. So let's click the IFC. The IFC is pure BIM interoperability, because the logic is I can export it and import it into any software. So I'm going to make sure when I come to my export IFC that I'm in the 2x3 coordination view. That's the current view, or the most applicable model definition view for quantity surveyors. There is a few items that I need to add to it, so what I'll do is click Modify Setup, Again, in session setup, property sets, export Revit property sets with the information, and very importantly, export the base quantities. Level of detail, maybe change that to medium or high, and in the advanced, select export parts as building elements. So those few little checkboxes are quite important, especially the Revit property sets and the base quantities. And then back to general and click OK. Click browse, again save it as an IFC export. You don't have to do that, I'm just giving it a bit of a differentiation to what's already on my desktop. Click desktop, save, and that's the path. And then what I'm going to do is select export. So that's going to go through a bit of a process. It takes a little bit longer than the DWFx process. May say it's not responding, but in fact it is. Give it a minute or two and then see if it's saved by going back to your desktop and see that it's in there. So that's it there, and that will be available for me to import into Cupid, Costex, Cato, whatever my quantity surveying software is. For the most part, they will accept IFC, should accept IFC, and some of them in fact actually accept DWFx, even though it's an Autodesk proprietary interoperability file. Thank you.